Hi everyone, it's John from RFM Calc, and as part of our series taking a deep dive into our key reports, today I'm talking about our RFM segmentation reports. So the RFM segmentation reports, you probably won't be surprised to know, have been a core part of RFM Calc, hence the name. Since we launched, they're available on all our plans from free all the way up to huge. I think probably the first question to address is, what does RFM mean? So RFM stands for Recency, Frequency, Monetary. It's an established marketing segmentation technique that is thought to date from around 1995. Originally proposed for direct mail, but it really translates well into e-commerce as well. And basically, what it does is allows you to group customers based on certain key characteristics. So you've got recency, which is how recently they ordered, frequency, which is how often the customer orders, and monetary, which is how much they spend. You can then segment customers on that basis, which is quite a simple methodology when you think about it. Which then allows you basically to target different customers in different ways. So you can target your very best customers in a particular way, and your worst customers who aren't scoring very well in the RFM different segments in a very different way. So there are different approaches in terms of how you can approach RFM segmentation. We use a very well-established commercial approach where we have 5 bins per RFM, so we have 1 to 5 in recency, 1 to 5 in frequency, 1 to 5 in monetary, which then gives you a total of 125 different possible score combinations across each customer who's segmented in that way. So I think probably the easiest way to demonstrate this is just to look at a few test reports. So our first report is a Magento site with quite a long time period of data from August 2014 to October 2021. Not a huge site, kind of 18 million GBP turnover in that time. So if I go down to the RFM analysis, the first thing we need to define when we're thinking about RFM are the boundaries. So normally, if you were trying to do an RFM analysis manually, say you downloaded all your customer records, you'd try and do this in Excel perhaps, and try and split the data and split your customers. You might not even have access to this total data in terms of what's available from your e-commerce platform. So typically, if you download your customer records, it might have their recency, it might have the last order date, it might not have their total orders and total monetary spend. So the first thing we'll do is we'll split your customer base into these 5 segments for recency, frequency, and monetary. And we'll tell you what those boundaries are here in this first section of the report, because obviously it's really important to understand that. So you can see here for this particular site, we've got the recency in terms of the last order date before the 1st of May 2017, then before the 6th of Jan 2019, and so on, up to 5, which is greater than the 4th of Jan 2021. And if you remember, just looking at this site, the data we've got runs to October 2021, which obviously ties in with that. We've then got how many orders the customer placed in total and the total monetary spend. So you'll see with recency and monetary, we're able to do this normally in quite an even way. We're able to create quite even splits between the 5 segments. Frequency is different because often for e-commerce sites, particularly if you're in a growth stage, most customers will only have placed 1 order. And then if 20% of your customers, which is effectively what you need, have placed 5 or more orders to enable that kind of even split, you'd be doing pretty well. Obviously, that's not the case for most sites, which is why you tend to end up with this kind of bias towards 1 and 2 orders. But there isn't really a lot we can do about that, and that's, I suppose, one of the slight limitations with using RFM for most e-commerce sites is that you do get that kind of split where you will see typically for a lot of sites, higher numbers of customers only placing 1 or 2 orders versus customers who place more than that. Whereas to get an even split here, you'd obviously need customers placing much more orders or a higher number of orders in terms of those longer time periods and future repeat order purchases. But what's really clever about RFM Calc is that if we have a look at a different site, so this is a high repeat Magento site, so similar date range, October 2018, well actually a shorter date range to May 2021, much bigger site in terms of turnover, 47 million. But if we go down to the RFM analysis for this site, you can see straight away, okay, we've got the recency, we've got the monetary split across the customers, nice and evenly again, I should say. But then frequency, because customers on this order place a lot more orders per customer. So if you've seen my previous video on lifetime revenue, you'll know on this particular site, it's really, really high. Customers on average place a lot of orders. We're therefore able to actually split the boundaries much more evenly. So you can see for this site, boundary 1 is actually 1 to 2 orders. Then we've got 3 to 7, 8 to 22, 23 to 72, and then 72 plus. And that allows us to make a nice even split. But I think one of the great things about using our system is that we'll do those boundaries for you. And this will work for any e-commerce site. So you can see here, obviously, like the orders, the total spend per customer is much, much higher on this site than you'd see in many sites as well. But we'll automatically calculate that for you. There's no kind of messing around with Excel spreadsheets. We'll sort the boundaries for you every time, and we'll get them nice and even, which is what you want. Okay, so once we've defined our RFM boundaries, we can then use that to create our RFM segments. So what we do here is we basically split your customer base into 5 segments. So we go 5 again, and we call them S1 to S5. And basically we define these again with an even split based on the total score. So it's all detailed here, but the total score is the recency score times the frequency score times the monetary score. So it ranges from 1, so 1 times 1 times 1, to 125, 5 times 5 times 5 for your very, very best customers. Obviously, we run 1 is the worst to 5 is the best. Sometimes you'll see that reversed for some reasons in certain methodologies, but we like to keep it nice and simple and very easy to understand at RFM Calc. So what you'll then get is these segments here. So you can see here we've got basically S1. So for this particular site, this Magento high repeat site, these are the worst customers. So you've got 1,020. The lifetime revenue is £219. The lifetime orders is 1.91, and the average order value is £114 from these customers. So you can see actually those would be pretty healthy stats for a lot of sites, but for this particular site, they are the weakest customers. And then we go all the way up to segment 5, where we've got 696 customers in this segment, but the lifetime value for these customers is massive, £52,546. Average orders is 248, just under over the lifetime, and an AOV of £212. So you've got these key S5 customers here. These are your very, very best customers. So what this allows you to do, basically, we, as well as doing this on our paid plans, you can export a full customer CSV. So we'll list all your customers with the segment they're in. We'll also give all the individual RFM boundaries as well that they're assigned to, which I'll talk about in a future video. But then that really gives you a really kind of powerful tool to target particular customers and say target your best customers, or perhaps your lapsed customers and so on, which I'll come on to. So you probably already know a lot of who your best customers are. That's natural if you're part of an e-commerce business to know who those customers are. But this gives you a really definitive way to try and identify those customers and actually say, okay, these are our best customers. These are our S5 customers based on these key data metrics, which is obviously really, really powerful data. So just to show that this data is obviously available for any platform, let's jump to our Shopify test report. So you're probably already aware of this, but RFM Calc is completely platform agnostic. You can generate reports for literally any e-commerce platform. All you have to do is export the order file, add it to RFM Calc, and we'll do the rest. So if we go down to the RFM analysis for this Shopify site, which we've got data from October 2017 to April 2022, kind of $42 million in revenue in that period. You can see once again, we've automatically calculated the RFM boundaries for you for recency, frequency, and monetary. Like a lot of e-commerce sites, as I mentioned before, frequency is difficult, and the same applies to this particular store because the majority of customers have only placed 1 or 2 orders. So obviously there's a natural skew there in terms of the frequency. But we've then generated the segments, S1 to S5, and you can see the difference here between an S1 customer with a lifetime revenue of $145 versus an S5 customer with a lifetime revenue of $833. So there's a big difference. And you can see there, just having that data and being able to identify those customers is really, really powerful. What we'll then do is basically plot the revenue month by month. So you can see where it's coming from, which of these segments that these custom RFM segments that we've generated for you. where the revenue is coming from month by month, and you can see here, you can just hover over. So obviously in April 2022, S5 and S4 by far the biggest chunks of revenue are coming from those areas, and then you've got S3 and then S2 and then S1 is tiny, not even present in April 2022, I think. So that allows you to see at a really visual level, kind of month by month, where these sectors are driving the revenue, and that's what you'd expect. Obviously, you'd expect your best sectors, your best customers to be driving the most revenue. That's what you want to see, but just being able to view it month by month really backs that up. We've also got a lifetime order revenue by segment as well, by our standard RFM segments, S1s to S5. So again, you can kind of see just overall how much revenue each sector contributes. And it can be a little bit interesting. Obviously, you'd expect S5 to be the biggest contributor, but you can see here, just because of the way the metrics work, S1 has actually generated more than S2 overall, even though the individual S2 customers, if we go back up here, have a higher lifetime revenue. So the lifetime revenue for S2 is 176, but the lifetime revenue for S1 is 145. But just because of the way the scoring works and how these customers are broken down, there's actually a lot more customers in the S1 group, which is why they're a bigger overall contributor to revenue, even though the metrics, lifetime revenue, lifetime orders, and AOV are lower than obviously the S2 sector. But that gives you a nice snapshot there of how that works. Okay, so as well as automatically creating these standard RFM segments for you, which are really powerful, really useful in terms of being able to segment your customers, we also allow you to create custom RFM segments. So if you look back to the pricing table here, these are available from our medium plan up to our huge plan in this section, custom RFM segments. So if we go back to the Shopify report, you can see basically for this particular project, we've created these segments. So we've got top customers, weakest customers, lapsed big spenders, low spending new customers, high spending new customers, and uncategorized. We've kind of created a catch-all as well. So, and you can see then the data in terms of the customer count, lifetime revenue, lifetime orders, and AOV. Like a lot of tables in RFM Calc, you can sort these as well really easily just by clicking on them. So that's really, really powerful data as well. And basically, as well as our standard segments, this gives you an extra level of data by being able to create custom segments. So creating these is really, really easy. You can do them within the edit project screen. So basically what you can do, so obviously our demo account is on our huge plan, so you can create up to 10 custom segments. Obviously that varies depending on what account plan you're on. So all you need to do is basically just tick the options you want for each segment. So this works in a very simple way in that it's kind of or for the ticks within a segment, and then when combining them. So basically, if we look at our top customers, this is where we got recency 5 and frequency 5 and monetary 5. So that's when we've got those S1 segments that we've defined for you. When they're all 5, we're going to call that top customers. And then weakest customers is the opposite. So you've got 1 for recency, frequency, and monetary. Lapsed big spenders. So this is kind of showing the flexibility you have with these custom segments. So we know recency is 1 because they've not spent for a while, but we want frequency doesn't matter. So we've left that blank, so that'll be ignored. And then monetary is 4 or 5. So you can tick multiple here. That's absolutely fine. And that will be evaluated by RFM Calc as recency equals 1 and ignore frequency, monetary equals 4 or 5. And then basically, these are some demo ones that we give you. So if you click the help on this section, you've got a link here to apply example RFM segments, which are these ones here. So we include these for you. And then finally, we add one extra one, or I've added one extra one to this particular project, which is called all of the customers. So how the custom segments work in RFM Calc is that each customer can only belong to one segment, and they're applied in numeric order. So we'll try segment 1 first, then segment 2, segment 3, but you'll only be applied if they're not already in a segment. So what this allows you to do by having this catch-all for all of the customers, basically if R is 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and the same for F and M, it doesn't matter, we'll apply all of the customers, but only if they've not already get a segment set previously. So that allows you to have a really nice catch-all in the reports. So if we go back to this Shopify report, you can see we've got basically the segments there defined with the customer count, lifetime revenue, orders, and AOV, which gives you a really nice overview. We then plot monthly revenue by custom segment. So you can see the biggest is actually uncategorized. So obviously you can do more work to this and categorize more segments. But then you've got high spending new customers. You've got your low spending new customers. You've got your top customers as well. And you can see that month by month. And obviously when you go further back in time, you can see your lapsed big spenders. And you can see here, they were actually generating quite a lot of revenue. Let's say May 2019, June 2019, we were getting a lot of revenue from customers who are now lapsed. So they're probably customers you want to go back and win back if you can. We'll also again give you the lifetime, very similar to the standard RFM segments. We'll give you a lifetime order revenue split for your custom segments as well. And like I say, you can have up to 10 here on our huge plan, so there's quite a lot of flexibility. You don't have to have the uncategorized segment. So what we'll do here is we'll give you a little line just to say total revenue attributed to your custom RFM segments is the value, and then how much of that is total revenue. Obviously, because we've got this uncategorized custom segment mopping up everything that isn't mapped to a custom segment, it's 100%. But if you didn't have that, you'd be able to see here how much of your total revenue for this particular site is covered by the custom segments you've set up. Okay, so the last part of this section is, as well as kind of giving you all the data, we also give you a snapshot of your best customers. Now, obviously for these reports, we've anonymized all the data, so that's an option in your project settings. You don't have to do that, so if you don't, you'll get the real names and emails here, so it'll allow you to actually do some targeting and contact those customers if you want to. But basically, we'll give you, your top 10 best customers first of all. So you can see these all have a score. So this is going back to these S1 segments of 125 when you've got recency times frequency times monetary. So naturally they're your best customers. They're the most recent, they're the biggest spenders, and the most frequent in terms of purchases as well. So you can see here we've got spend, orders, last order, score. Again, you can sort this really easily just by clicking on the headings like all data tables in RFM Calc. We've then got the top 10 biggest spenders with 0 orders in the last 6 months. So obviously this is only really applicable if you've got up-to-date data. Obviously if your data is quite out of date, this won't really work, but we've got 0 orders in the last 6 months here. So you can see all these customers. So for example, this customer here has spent $10,000 with this site, $11,000, 33 orders, but they haven't ordered since January 2022. So that's one. Obviously, you'd want to be trying to find out why that customer's not come back. And then we have another final one, top 10 most frequent purchasers with lowest total spend. So again, as the name suggests, these customers have purchased frequently, but they have the lowest spend based on that purchase frequency. So if we have a look at, let's have a look at this site as well. Obviously, we get this for all platforms, whatever customer data you're uploading. We'll do this. As you'll see for this project, Magento project, we've got the same custom segments, but obviously very different data to what I showed on the Shopify project. And then if we look here, again, we've got the customer list, so you can see for these ones, we've got the top 10 most frequent purchasers with lowest total spend. So you can see you've got a customer here who's placed 58 orders, but only £1,500 in revenue. So quite a low AOV, hence a lower score in terms of their segmentation score. So again, that's something you can investigate. Can you do something for those customers to get them to increase their AOV? Can you offer bundles? Can you look at your offer architecture? All those kind of questions you can then ask based on the data. And as you can see, for a complete list of customers beyond the top 10, please see our customer CSV file that accompanies the report. So that's something I'll detail on a future video. But basically, we'll give you a list, an export of all your customers with their total spend, orders, and all these RFM scores are part of that CSV, which then allows you to kind of do some manual filtering in Excel. For example, you could create lists really, really easily for all your top customers. Even the customers you've labeled with custom segments as top customers, you can create a list. We'll feed that through to the CSV as well. You can export those into your mailing list and so on. Maybe for direct mail, however you want to target them. Obviously, as long as you have the appropriate permissions. So it's really, really powerful data. And even if you're not using it for targeting them, or you're not going to email them or do anything specific marketing related, it's still really, really powerful data to be able to see this. Great. So I think that's everything on our RFM reports. Hopefully that's given you a good overview of how they work. Like I said at the beginning of the video, there are different methodologies out there for particularly calculating the RFM boundaries. Sometimes you'll see maybe only 3 bins or 4 bins. Sometimes you'll see people say, oh, 1 is the best, 5 is the worst, and things like that, which doesn't really make sense to us. So we've tried to use a very tried and tested commercial approach in order to give you 1, usable data, but 2, easy to understand data. And then, yeah, obviously we've been through all the different reports and what we cover. So hopefully that's been useful. Thanks very much for watching. We really, really appreciate it. Obviously, if you've got any questions on how this part of the report works or how anything in terms of the RFM Calc service works, feel free to drop us a line via our website. But if not, thanks again for watching and look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye, everyone.